So sorry we couldn't be together today, but here's a video with your lesson. For our conversation, we were adding where we're from today. So soy, they, and then you can add any country you want. Mexico is commonly used, or los Estados Unidos. Some students like to say they're from the United States. And then at the end, we are also adding basically see you next week. It means until the next week. It's hasta la próxima semana. Our country for this week is Guatemala. And Guatemala is actually the world's leading producer of a gem known as jade. We see jade a lot in some of the Asian jewelries, and so we associate it many times with countries from Asia, but it is actually the top producer is a Spanish-speaking country. Many people that live in Guatemala come from the Mayans. There are many native tribes in Spanish-speaking countries, but most people have heard of the Mayans, the Incans. And in this tiny country of Guatemala, there are actually 21 languages that the Mayans speak. There was leftover chocolate found in Guatemala that's believed to be around 1,500 years old. We have Spanish-speaking countries to thank for our chocolate. And then over 1 million tourists visit Guatemala every year. Guatemala is in North America, just below the country of Mexico. It's actually a very poor country in general. We have a friend who was adopted from Guatemala, and his adoptive parents said one of the sad things about when they went to go get him is as they were leaving, there was a crowd of adults that were begging to be taken to the United States. And we live in such an amazing country, and people know that there are opportunities here that they might not be able to have in their country. For our Bible story, we have the Ten Commandments. Dios led the Israelitas to a montaña. Thunder roared and lightning flashed. The pueblo heard a loud blast from a trompeta. Then Dios called Moisés to the top of the montaña and said, Soy the Lord your Dios, who brought you out of Egipto. Dios wrote the 10 commandments on 2 stone tablas for all his pueblo to obey. The Israelitas needed a place to worship. Dios showed them exactly how to build a special carpa. It was called a tabernáculo. Dios placed a cloud over the carpa. Whenever the cloud moved, the Israelitas packed up and followed it. One thing it talks about in the scriptures is how God, usually when he would speak to someone, he would speak in dreams or in visions. But to Moses, he actually spoke to him while Moses was awake. For our lesson this week, we are doing possessives. So if we are talking about our dog, then we have nuestro perro. But if it's more than one dog, then we need to add an S, not only to the dog, but also to the our. So it's nuestros perros. If it's a girl dog, change the endings to A's. If it's girls and boys, keep the O ending because that is the default. If we're talking about saying my or your or his, her, your, all those nice possessive pronouns, we're learning those this week. And notice the fun thing is if you don't know what to use, just use Sue, because for 5 of them, it's just Sue. And if you want to practice your mine, little kids are really good at saying it's mine, then you would use el mío, el tuyo, el suyo. If you're using mine as a subject, then you would keep that el on the front of it Like mine is red, el mío es rojo. And if it's plural, it's las mías son rojas. If you're using mine on the end like an object in a sentence, then you would drop that el and you would just say el perro es mío. You can also use mío as my, and interestingly it comes after dog. If you're saying my dog, it's perro mío. We had a visitor one time that came to class and they used el suyo, el mío. They used it many times and again. So these are very common words to hear. We've talked about this several times in class, but if you're talking about Emma's dog, then you would use of Emma. They don't use apostrophes to show possessives in Spanish. So if you're saying the dog is Emma's, you would say the dog is of Emma. El perro es de Emma. And that is the end. I hope you guys have a great restful day. We will probably just excuse this quiz unless you guys want to take it next week. And I will see you next week.